must go to that police station. That's correct.
Yes.
Thank you, General. Can I ask you to go to HFF4, which is, starts on page 113 of the second section. And before I take you to the section that I want you to deal with, can you just identify this document for us?
Commissioners, this document is an information note that was prepared and submitted by the then Deputy National Head of the DPCI, Lieutenant General Mosekedi, to the National Head of the DPCI, Lieutenant General Labia.
And what was the purpose of the information note?
The purpose of the information note was to apprise the National Head on the feedback in relation to the burglary or housebreaking and theft of the 541 kilograms of cocaine from Port Shepstone Serious Organized Crime Investigation Unit.
Okay, and on page 113 at paragraph 2.2, under the heading background, you will see that General Mosekedi refers to, it says that she traveled to KwaZulu-Natal and met with the provincial head, Major General Senona. Subsequently, the provincial head submitted a report regarding the incident, and it is summarized as follows. And then on the next page is a summary, according to General Mosekedi, of what General Senona had reported about the incident. And he also starts with the seizure of the drugs in June 2021. Now, we've dealt with some of the evidence that General Senona deals with in his factual report, but if I can then ask you to go to page 115, where he deals with what happens to the cocaine and specifically referencing Warrant Officer Perumal. If I could ask you to read, without reading out the SAP reference number in paragraph 2.2.5, if you could read that paragraph into the record.
Paragraph 2.2.5, the exhibits were counted by the members and it was established that there were 541 bricks of cocaine weighing approximately 1 kilogram. I think it was supposed to read 1 kilogram each. They were entered into Isipingo with a reference number. Warrant Officer Perumal of Isipingo SAPS indicated that they did not have space to store such volume of narcotics. A provincial office was notified of the lack of storage facility at the station and at FSL.
Now, are you aware of where General Senona would have gotten the version that Warrant Officer Perumal said that there wasn't any space at Isipingo to store the drugs?
Commissioners, I don't know for a fact, but it can only be from his subordinates that were either at the scene or overseeing, so either within the provincial structure or from Colonel Jacob and his team.
I did refer you earlier on, in your evidence, that Colonel Jacob's version is in fact that he never engaged Warrant Officer Perumal about the capacity. If you look at what you say in 52, in fact, he says, Colonel Jacob says that Warrant Officer Perumal was never asked if there was capacity to store the exhibits at Isipingo. According to Colonel Jacob, Isipingo was not considered because it is well known that Isipingo is a smaller police station and it is in a high-risk area. So on Colonel Jacob's own version, he never engaged with Warrant Officer Perumal about whether there was capacity or not. He's going off the basis that it is well known that Isipingo doesn't have capacity.
That's correct, Commissioners. He basically confirms what Perumal has said, that Perumal was not engaged.
And Could you find any statement in the docket, which is obviously not before us for various reasons, but could you find any statement in the docket where Warrant Officer Perumal says that he said there was no capacity?
There's no such statement, Commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you, General. And then at 2.2.6 on page 115, if you could just read that.
The Provincial Commander for Serious Organised Crime indicated that the DPCI Port Shepstone Socky unit premises can be utilized to store the said exhibits. This location has been used to store drug exhibits previously, and it has 2 strong rooms.
And who would the provincial commander of SOC be there in this?
It is Brigadier Newswa, Commissioners.
Okay, so Brigadier Nuswa would have been the one that indicated that the DPCI Port Shepstone can be used.
That's correct.
And do you have any knowledge of whether that facility had been previously used to store drugs?
I do not have any such knowledge, Commissioners.
And can you describe?
Can I just understand? The answer, what does it mean? Is it that you personally are not aware, or you know it's never been used for that?
No, it's about my own personal knowledge, Commissioners.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, General. General, is there a difference between the strong rooms that's described here in this paragraph 2.2.6, where these drugs, the drugs was going to be stored in one of these strong rooms? Is there a difference between that strong room and the safes that are used at police stations?
Well, I do not know what is what was the position in relation to the safe at Port Shepstone, or the strong rooms as it's referred to. But in terms of at police stations, the walk-in safes has to comply to certain standards in terms of the thickness of the walls, for instance, how it is additionally safeguarded, as well as the doors, the quality of the door, the type of locks that's being used, etc. So there's specific standards to it, but I cannot comment to the standard of the strong rooms in Port Shepstone.
And insofar as security is concerned?
At Port Shepstone, indeed inferior to at the police station, because police stations are manned 24 hours per day. So there's at all material times armed police officers on duty at the police station, which was not the case at Port Shepstone at this
But General,
facility.
what do you do if what Colonel Jacobs says is correct, that the police station at Ispingo is a smaller police station and is in a high-risk area? Would you still insist that these exhibits should have been stored there?
Commissioner, further in my evidence, I will prove why it was supposed to be kept at Isipingo. But if there was, for instance, a fear of perhaps a theft at Isipingo, there was all other alternatives readily available.
Okay.
Thank you, General. Then at 2.2.7, could you read that?
The exhibits were then transported to Port Shepstone DPCI offices under armed escort from POP tracking team members who are seconded to Durban Serious Organised Crime Investigation. The unit commander of the DPCI Socky, Lieutenant Colonel Prinsloo, was informed about the arrangement and allowed members to utilize a strong room to store the exhibits.
General, this is of course a recordal of what General Senona had reported to General Mosikidi as the factual report. Where did you get, because earlier on you gave evidence that General Senona was present when the drugs were stored. He doesn't mention this in this factual report of his, that he was present. there's only mention about the unit commander, Lieutenant Colonel Prince, who was informed about the arrangement and allowed the members to utilize the room, but we don't actually get anything as to whether General Sonona was there. How do you know that he was there?
Commissioners, that information is sourced from the case docket.
So there are witnesses or a witness that says he was there.
Indeed, Commissioners.
And presumably those witnesses would be the people that were present, either would be police officers.
Indeed, Commissioners.
And then if I could ask you to,
Or just before that, General, the drugs that had been stored at Isipingo 16 months previously, what were those? What type of drugs were those? Just remind me, I know it is somewhere here.
The drugs that were stolen,
Stored,
the 547
the 547
in February
kg.
2020.
that
The
was
547
Mandrax, Commissioners.
Mandrax. I'm asking
At
that.
Isipingo.
Yes, I'm asking that because the kilograms may not necessarily be the determinant with regard to the space needed for storage. Take Dhaka for example. 547 or 541 kgs of Dhaka would take much more space than 541 kgs of cocaine. I'm not an expert in cocaine, but I think that's the situation. I would be surprised if you were to say I'm wrong on that. Do you get my drift?
Yes, your observation is spot on, Chairperson.
Yes. Can you relate that then
yes,
to Mandrax and cocaine?
Yeah, Mandrax basically is tablets. So it's also compressed into tablets and then packaged predominantly in 1,000 tablets per package, packages. So
yes.
I'm of the view that obviously depending on space, but it's more or less the same volume
All right.
that it will take up, whether it's cocaine or Mandrax, of more or less the same mass.
Well, that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Then, General, if you can read 2.2.9 into the record.
Samples were taken and forwarded to the FSL on 2021-07-05 for analysis. The analysis report is still awaited.
Now, this report that with the information note was 2021, November 2021, was prepared in November 2021. We are now in 2026. Do you know if that analysis report is available now?
Commissioners, there was never a report issued by the Forensic Science Laboratory in Amanzimtoti due to flooding of the premises, where all the exhibits or some exhibits, inclusive of this exhibits, were contaminated as a result of the flooding. So that basically nullified the prospects of obtaining a report there, and no report was issued as such.
And when did that flood occur?
There was multiple floods over the years, Commissioners. I'm not sure of the exact date of the flooding that caused this exhibits not to be in a position to be examined.
But do you know if by November 2021, when the theft occurred, the flood had already occurred then?
That's correct.
It had occurred?
That's correct.
Okay. Then, if we can go back to your statement, paragraph 52. Sorry, we're done with 52. If we can go to 53.
just checked, I think the floods were in May 2022.
Commissioner, that premises specifically was prone to flooding. Even before that major flooding of 2022, I can recall that.
So it was a separate incident?
So,
the
so
flood.
yes, there were separate incidents.
But you don't know which flood it was that, it's presumably in the docket somewhere.
No, I do not have detailed knowledge of
Okay.
that.
Thank you. Paragraph 53. There you're referring to the Isipingo, Colonel Jacobs' version that Isipingo it's well known that it is a smaller police station and is in a high-risk area.
That's correct.
So you can read 53?
I find this explanation quite strange. The exhibits are supposed to be transferred to FSL within 7 days from the date of storage if the protocol and national instructions are adhered to. In other words, capacity for 541 kilograms was limited to no more than 7 days as intended by the protocol and national instructions. I referred earlier to 547 kilograms of Mandrax seized in 2020. This seizure occurred on 5 February 2020 at CHC depot in Prospecton, Durban, where SARS Customs detected a consignment of suspected Mandrax. The exhibit's 547 kilograms were booked in at Isipingo SAPS and kept in the armory, the same police station that apparently is known not to have capacity. The exhibits were submitted to the Forensic Science Laboratory on 12 November 2021. If Isipingo SAPS could store 547 kilograms in February 2020, it is unclear why the 541 kilograms of cocaine could not be stored at Isipingo 16 months later.
And then over the page, paragraph 54.
If the concerns regarding Isipingo's capacity and risk profile were considerations in the decision to store the seized cocaine elsewhere, it is unclear why the cocaine was not stored at the police station closer to Isipingo. The 4 closest police stations to the Durban Harbour are Isipingo, Maiden Wharf, Brighton Beach, and Umbilu. And the reason why we refer to these 4 police stations, commissioners, is because that is the police stations where, from the list of inquiries that I've drawn, was the stations that were utilized to store the exhibits at.
General, we'll get to those lists of inquiries because there's still more homework to be done on that from you. But can you just explain to the commissioners how it came about that you drew that list of inquiries of other drug busts that occurred?
Commissioners, based on the facts that came to the fore in relation to the actual seizure of the 541 kilograms and subsequent burglary and theft of it, I took a decision, and all the irregularities that took place there, I took a decision to look at similar seizures from Durban Harbour to determine whether that forms a pattern or if this was an exceptional case. And that's the reason why I have requested a number of other inquiries, similar seizures at Durban Harbour, for further analysis.
And one of those inquiries, was it the 30 July 2021, approximately 1,000 kilogram cocaine bust?
Indeed, Commissioners,
Okay, that we dealt with earlier.
that's correct.
Okay, then, so you, from those inquiries, you then looked at where those exhibits were stored after they were seized. These are the 4 police stations that you had picked up. It was Isipingo, it was Maiden Wharf, Brighton Beach, and Umbilu.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Okay? You can then continue with paragraph 55.
The distance between Isipingo Police Station and Maiden Wharf Police Station is 20 kilometers. Brighton Beach, between now Isipingo and Brighton Beach Police Station is 13 kilometers. And between Umbilu, and between Isipingo and Umbilu is 17 kilometers. And then from Isipingo to Durban Central Police Station is 24 kilometers.
You may continue with 56.
I do not know why none of these facilities were considered as alternatives. Instead, the Port Shepstone DPCI Soccer Unit premises 100 kilometers from Isipingo Police Station was considered appropriate.
Continue.
Apart from the proximity to the Isipingo Police Station, I also considered whether these other police stations closer to Isipingo had capacity both in respect of security and space. I looked at seizures before and after the June 2021 cocaine drug bust. I've already dealt with the 547 kilogram Mandrax seizure, where the Mandrax was stored at Isipingo. I referred earlier to the 1,000 kilogram cocaine bust on 30 July 2021. These exhibits were stored at Maiden Wharf, which is 20 kilometers from Isipingo Police Station. Another example relates to the seizure on 16 February 2022, where DPCI members of Durban Serious Organised Crime Investigation Unit, in conjunction with Crime Intelligence, seized 550 kilograms of cocaine at Manuchar warehouse. The cocaine was hidden in the cargo in a shipment container. The container originated from the port of Santos in Brazil. The crime scene was properly dealt with in terms of crime scene management principles. The exhibits were photographed and sealed in forensic evidence bags. The exhibits were booked in at Umbilu SAPS and submitted to the Forensic Science Laboratory on 24 February 2022.
Thank you, General. Then if we can move to the next topic, which is the theft of the seized cocaine from DPCI Port Shepstone premises. Paragraph. Oh,
Maybe before you do that, General, has there been instances where drugs that were seized were kept at the Port Shepstone offices?
Commissioner, as I testified, I am not aware of any such, except for what I've seen at the commission over TV, that apparently there was consignments of, or a consignment kept in that SAP 13 facility. But from my own knowledge, I cannot confirm that.
Thank you.
I think, General, when we asked General Senona why he considered this facility safe, he gave that evidence and said because in the past they had stored drugs at the facility. Although I think there were 2 incidents in 2018 where there was theft or some other thing. But he said because in the 3 years prior there had been no incident, he was satisfied that, you know, the facility was safe to store these drugs.
Commissioners, I will still get to that point, but I do not agree with General Senona.
Yeah. Okay, before you go to the next section, in paragraphs 54, 55, and 57, you seem to be implying, without saying it, that there were improper motives for sending these drugs to the DPCI facility in Port Shepstone, because you are suggesting that there were other more suitable facilities, so you don't know why these drugs were not stored there. But then you leave it like that. It's almost as if you are implying that there was an improper motive for sending them to this facility.
Commissioners, that is why I've said at the inception of this portion of my evidence that I have my own strong views about what transpired here, but it needs to be deduced to facts and evidence before I can reach conclusions. And that is why I keep it to the facts, because the other options was available. And there's proof that those facilities, there was similar or even bigger drug seizures from Durban Harbour kept at that facilities without any problems in the past.
So can we leave it at you have a suspicion, but because you don't have the facts, you want to leave it at that?
I would prefer that, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
General, I'm going to refer to a few issues, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 or so, which raise in my mind the following issues or questions. Was it purely a comedy of errors that so many things went wrong? Or is it so that perhaps right from the beginning, the idea was to eventually steal the drugs? Let me raise this. The evidence has touched on them already, but I just want to put them together to show that it's quite difficult to believe that in one case there would have been such a comedy of errors. The scene right at the beginning, the crime scene, as you gave details, was handled improperly or not according to prescripts. That's number one. Number two, although 16 months previously, 547 kilograms of Mandrex had been stored at Isipingo, all of a sudden 541 kgs of cocaine could not be stored there. Number three, as a result, the cocaine was taken to 8 DPCI storage in Port Shepstone. Number four, the cocaine was not stored at the Maiden Wharf, at Brighton Beach, at Umbilo, or at Durban Central, the furthest of which is Durban Central, is only 24 kilometers from Isipingo. Fifth, there is no explanation why the Port Shepstone storage, which is 100 kilometers from Isipingo, was chosen. And sixth, on your evidence, General Sinona did not follow the prescripts with regard to the handling of keys. Remember what you said about the custodian. So it's in that context that I say General Sinona did not follow the prescripts with regard to the handling of keys. That's a long line of steps right from the crime scene, the very first involvement of the police. They handled the scene wrongly. And from that point on, all the way to the storage in Port Shepstone, everything is going wrong. And the culmination is the theft of the cocaine. Could this have merely been a comedy of errors, or was there something more? Please express a view if you can or you are willing to.
Commissioners, I'm of the view that it's no coincidence and that the sequence of events is indeed, I would just want to get the correct word, it's by design, if I can perhaps word it as such.
In fact, I could even add no CCTV cameras, no 24-hour guards, and even if ordinarily they did not have those, but now that they have this much cocaine valued at the amount that it was, and perhaps the value did not matter much, this was a serious offense in and of itself. So that's 7 and 8 of the several factors. Please continue, General.
General, do you still want to finalize your answer to the chair? You said it's by design. There are, of course, further factors that will add to the chair's list. So maybe you want to reserve.
No, I'll maintain with that statement. Thank you, Commissioners.
He says that he believes that it was by design, Chair. I don't know
And
if you
that it
heard
was no coincidence.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, General. So perhaps then let's add to the chair's list. At paragraph 60, we deal with the theft.
During the period 6 to 8 November 2021, the 541 kilograms of cocaine seized on 22 June 2021 was stolen from the DPCI Port Shepstone strong room with the use of a grinder to gain entry. It is unclear when the theft occurred because the alarm system that was fitted at the premises was not properly working. In addition, there was no armed response services because the contract with the private security company was not renewed, having expired on 31 March 2020. The alarm was also not maintained. And what I mean with...
In fact, General, we can't even tell that the drugs were stolen after the metal gate or whatever had been cut. Who knows that a key was used to open, take out the drugs nicely, close, and then saw off just for the pretense that there was that kind of break-in. It's pure speculation. Maybe I should not bother you, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility, not with everything that happened here. Please continue, General.
Thank you,
General, do you just want to explain the part about the alarm was also not maintained?
Yeah, the importance of that, Commissioners, is that during that time we were suffering of load shedding. So it meant that after a series of load shedding, the alarm, when the electricity came back, would not automatically reset. It had to be done manually.
And what is the relevance of that insofar as the theft is concerned, that's 6, 7, and 8? Was there load shedding?
There was indeed load shedding during that period, Commissioners.
Thank you, General. General, then if you can deal with paragraph 61, which I think 61 and 62, which you say is for you one of very strong indicators of these events being by design. Can you just deal with 61?
It is of concern that 4 months after the seizure, the cocaine had not been transferred to FSL. As stated earlier, the exhibits must be transferred to FSL immediately, but not later than 7 working days in exceptional circumstances. Colonel Jacob indicated that he was informed by FSL that there was no space for the exhibits. This seems to be a regular occurrence. In the other seizures referred to earlier, the reason for non-compliance with the 7-day period appears to also be that FSL has no capacity to receive the exhibits.
General, can I just take you back to that last sentence in paragraph 60? The alarm was also not maintained. I understood you to say because of load shedding, whenever power came back on, it had to be reset.
Yes,
Did I
it
understand
does not automatically reset, so it had to be reset. So it tells us, Commissioner, that even the battery backup systems were in all probability not fully functional anymore.
And whose failing would it have been to make sure that doesn't happen, that the alarm is reset, the battery is always functioning in that center?
Well, Commissioner, I believe that the problem emerged subsequent to the contract with a security company expiring on the 31st of March 2020. So it means subsequent to that, there was no link between that alarm system and the security company. And also the the equipment per se was not maintained. So new batteries was, for instance, not installed in case of load shedding.
Okay, so absent the renewal of the contract, the station or the office couldn't do anything about this alarm situation?
No, those type of processes need to be dealt with by supply chain management within the provincial office of the DPCI, or if it's depicted within the fashion that it's perhaps the responsibility of the owner of the building. I do not know what was the case at Port Shepstone.
Thank you. Thanks, General.
Thank you, General. And then paragraph 62 on page 23.
This may indeed be what FSL communicated to the investigating officers when requests were made to FSL, but I wish to highlight the matter that cast doubt on the veracity of this version. On the 9th of July 2021, a few weeks after the 541 kilogram cocaine seizure, officials seized 700 kilograms of cocaine in Aeroton, Johannesburg. The Aeroton cocaine exhibits were transferred to FSL on 19 July 2021 for analysis and storage. If FSL had capacity on 19 July 2021 to store 700 kilograms, it is unclear why it did not have capacity for 541 kilograms 3 weeks earlier, or at any time before the 2021 theft in Port Shepstone.
But does FSL have a dedicated space for drugs? I'm just thinking, what if they had in storage something else altogether?
Commissioner,
I'm just thinking maybe focus now is just on drugs. And when last did you store drugs? You stored them on 19 July 2021. But that does not also answer the question, what else could have been stored during that period?
Commissioner, I do not have detailed knowledge about how forensic science are going about their business. But what I know for a fact is that there's different sections who has their own storing capabilities within that sections. So I would then consider it that the narcotics section would have its own dedicated storage facilities, because those analysts are dealing with narcotic cases only.
Sorry, General, in paragraph 62, one is in Johannesburg and one is in KZN. So I'm a bit lost there. The FSL capacity you are referring to when you say it's unclear why they did not have capacity for 541 kilograms. Are you saying the Aeroton bust, those drugs were stored in KZN?
No, by no means.
Are you suggesting that the ones that were found in KZN should have been brought to Johannesburg?
That's
that-
correct.
okay.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Sorry, General, in answering that question, can you just explain to the commissioners again the anomaly here with the Amanzimtoti reference versus what happened with the other bus that you looked at and where they went?
Yeah, all the other major seizures, Commissioners, were submitted to the main lab, and that is in Silverton, Pretoria, Forensic Science Laboratory. Strange enough, with this matter, only the correspondence took place between Colonel Jacob and the lab in Amanzimtoti. Whilst everybody is privy to the fact that the major busts, all the exhibits, are transported to the main lab in Pretoria.
Thank you, commissioners.
When does Colonel Jacob say who at FSL Amanzimtoti he spoke to that said they don't have capacity?
There
we
is
have
evidence. There is evidence to that effect, Commissioner.
Okay.
Indeed.
All right. And
Mm.
that-
64. Commissioner Paloi, it's at 64.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
You may proceed, General 60. If we can just, on 62, deal with FSL. In your experience, is it indeed the case that they regularly inform investigating officers who need to transfer exhibits to their facilities that they don't have capacity?
It happens indeed from time to time, Commissioner. Obviously, it depends on how much exhibits are delivered and whether they are stacked to capacity or not. So indeed, it's happening. It's a practical problem. But obviously, if there's massive seizures and you speak to commanders within that space, I believe you will be accommodated, if anyhow possible.
And then, General, if the exceptional circumstances scenario, which says it must be done no later than 7 working days, so now the 7 days expire, what is the obligation on the investigating officer insofar as ensuring that FSL does at some point get the exhibits? Do they just leave it until they hear from FSL, or do they have to do regular inquiries? How does it work?
No, there needs to be regular inquiries, Commissioners, but not just from the investigator. The investigator is operating at a low level. Although they are performing a critical role within the system, this needs to go further. We have a process in place where we call a priority request. So under these circumstances, a provincial commander or a unit commander or the provincial head is at liberty to submit a request to the leadership of the Forensic Science Laboratory and request, obviously depending on the sensitivity and the urgency of completing an investigation, to prioritize this matter. And it's my experience from General Mulaudzi and his team that whenever we submit such requests, it's adhered to as a matter of urgency. So there is provision for that. We cannot expect FSL to follow up with the investigators. It's part of our responsibility as leaders and managers to ensure that we assist the investigators to get those exhibits to FSL as a matter of urgency.
And is a bust of 541 kilograms of cocaine considered to be significant?
Indeed, Commissioners. If we consider the only bigger seizure was the ton of cocaine, and then the 541 kilograms was the second biggest cocaine bust, although the Mandrax seizure was a bit more. But it is indeed significant if we look at the black market value of these seizures.
And there's the 700 Aeroton, 700 kg.
Yeah, I've specifically referred to the KZN seizures,
Okay.
Commissioners. But indeed, the Johannesburg Aeroton seizure is also noteworthy.
Thank you, General. And General, what happened with the 1,000 kg? Because we have the 22 June 2021, which is the theft of the 541 kg. Then we've got the Aeroton, which is 9 July, which was 700, and then there's the 1,000 kg that is at the end of July. So in the space of just over a month, there's 3 big drug busts. And out of the 3, it's just the one in Port Shepstone that there's the theft. What happened to the 1,000 kg?
Those exhibits were successfully transferred to the Forensic Science Laboratory, Commissioners.
Then if we can deal with paragraph 63.
I referred earlier to the 2021 information note by General Musikidi regarding the theft of the cocaine at Port Shepstone. In this information note, reference is made to an attempted break-in at the premises in early October 2021, a few weeks before the 2021 theft. According to the information note, attempts were made to finalize the investigation to mitigate the threat posed by storing exhibits at the premises.
Can we then go to the information note, page 116? It's HFF4. And this is still the factual report from General Sonona. So if you can read 2.3 and then 2.3.1, the heading at 2.3.
2.3, the provincial head further reported that, 2.3.1, during early October 2021, the provincial commander informed the investigating officer, Lieutenant Colonel Jacob, of an attempted break-in at the Port Shepstone office. Upon further discussions with the provincial management, attempts were made to finalize the investigation. This was done to mitigate the threat posed by having exhibits stored at Port Shepstone offices. The FSL was again approached by the IO on 27 October 2021 in order to expedite the analysis report. However, Warrant Officer Sechedi indicated that he needed approximately 7 bricks of cocaine from the exhibit seized. He further reiterated that FSL does not have space to store the exhibits. The IO had arranged with FSL that additional bricks of cocaine from Port Shepstone could be obtained during the week of 15th November 2021.
General, do you want to comment on that paragraph?
Well, Commissioners, I think it speaks for itself, but here again, Warrant Officer Sechedi is based at FSL in Amanzimtoti. But the consignment was supposed to be delivered in totality to the Forensic Science Laboratory in Silverton.
Thank you. General, can you then go to paragraph 64 of your report and read that? Page 23, paragraph 64.
There is an allegation that FSL was again contacted on 27 October 2021 to expedite the analysis report. However, Warrant Officer Sechedi reiterated that FSL did not have space to store the exhibits. This is after FSL had received 700 kilograms of cocaine seized in Aeroton in July 2021. Curiously, no attempts were made to increase security at the premises or to move the cocaine to a more secure location after the attempted break-in.
What would have been a more secure location if it couldn't go to FSL?
Any of the police stations, SIP 13 facilities in the Durban area would have been more secure.
Then,
Can I, maybe back to my question. So we see that on the 27th of October, a call is made and Setsedi said that they don't have storage at FSL. My understanding of the evidence was that even earlier than the 27th of October, there had been a request or at least an indication from FSL that they don't have capacity to store that whole consignment. Am I correct in that understanding?
That's correct, Commissioner, but that request went to Amanzimtoti
Yes,
lab
I see.
and not to the main lab.
Yes.
In Silverton.
And the request to Amanzimtoti, and I think that's what I was asking about earlier, that first request to Amanzimtoti, is it accounted for? Who made the request? Who did they make it to? Who said they don't have space?
Commissioners, there is a pro forma document that need to be completed that accompany the actual exhibits or the samples that was obtained now to FSL. So upon handing up or handing in the exhibits at FSL, you submit that request of the necessary investigations that need to be performed by FSL with the exhibits and you receive an acknowledgement of receipt. So under normal circumstances, that letter will be under the signature of the unit commander to the forensic science laboratory commander, who then obviously disseminate the exhibits to the appropriate section for further handling.
So if for some good reason a decision had been made not to transfer this consignment to Silverton, but let's say there was a good reason and it was to be taken to Amanzi Mtoti, you're saying that process would follow. There would be a completion of a pro forma document that gets submitted. And would that be for the entire consignment?
No, Commissioner, obviously if the entire consignment was submitted, then that request would have included then all the seal numbers of all the exhibits. So under these circumstances, the request would have only spoken to the samples that was submitted.
Yeah, so there was never a request to Amanzi Mtoti for the entire consignment to be taken to Amanzi Mtoti. At least there's no record of that.
There's no written records of that, Commissioner.
Okay.
Although obviously there's a lot of indications that there was telephonic discussions between the detectives in KZN, the DPCI detectives, and FSL.
Okay.
And it's substantiated with witness statements.
Yes, I understand that part. I think what I'm trying to clear is to distinguish a conversation about a sample
Yes,
between DPCI and FSL, and a conversation between the same parties, FSL Amanzi Mtoti, about the entire consignment.
That's correct.
I'm just trying to get clarity of mind that what was the discussion about? It was about a sample or about the entire consignment?
I think both, Commissioners. Obviously, in writing was the request for the sampling
Yes,
of or the analysis of the samples.
yes.
But according to the investigation team, they also made efforts to get the exhibits in totality deposited to Amanzi Mtoti. But it does not add up because in all the other instances, it was transferred successfully to FSL main lab in Silverton.
Okay, thank you, General. Thank you, Ms. Nupe.
Thank you, Commissioner. General, we're now at, General, just on the samples, so now we have another version that there was then a request from FSL for presumably 7 bricks. Is that usual for them to be requesting, to be making those kind of requests for samples, FSL?
Commissioners, I cannot account for the truth of that version, but it does not make sense to me. And it goes back to my earlier argument that detectives are not scientists like the analysts or experts at FSL. We know nothing about random sampling, so how would they have decided to pick 7 of the 541 bricks? In any event, for forensics to be in a position to bring out a report, they had to weigh all the exhibits on a calibrated scale, which is provided for within the FSL space.
And do you know if the bricks were ever, the 7 additional bricks were ever submitted to the FSL?
That never transpired, Commissioners.
So the 7 bricks never went to FSL?
That's correct.
Ms. Nube, sorry I need to complete my question. I think you asked it again, but the final leg of it was missing. The 1,000 kilogram bust, you said the exhibits were stored at Maiden Wharf. And then in the follow-up question by Ms. Nube, you said they were later transferred to FSL in Silverton. After how long was that? And I'm trying to make sense of the Port Shepstone one. Was it after 5 months or was it in a short space of time?
Commissioners, if I can perhaps just be referred to my statement, the correct paragraph, because there was a period that lapsed.
It's paragraph 58, and then much earlier, I don't think in the earlier paragraph, that's when I asked the question.
Yeah,
They said we'll come to it later.
Yes,
And where we dealt with it was.
If
in
my
paragraph-
memory serves me correct, that 1,000-kilogram seizure was submitted to FSL subsequent to the break-in at Port Shepstone. So it was early in December of 2021.
But then you can't use that example to say, well, if it happened in the 1,000-kilogram case, then the Port Shepstone one must also have been sent to FSL. Because as you say, this 100-kilogram, 1,000-kilogram cocaine bust was only sent to FSL after November, which means after the Port Shepstone incident. Which means it's possible that if the Port Shepstone incident had not happened, this bust would also not have been transferred to FSL.
Commissioner, yes, it's possible, but I do not know what's the reasons why it was not transferred, except for the explanation from the inquiry that the investigators indicate that they made inquiries at FSL in Silverton, and they were informed that there is no space to accommodate the 1,000 kilograms.
But was it a requirement that the 541-kilogram bust must go to FSL in Pretoria?
Indeed, everything must ultimately land up with the main lab in Pretoria, Commissioner, because after completion of the investigation and the SAP 83A is completed, the exhibits, all the drugs, need to be destroyed by FSL. So all those, the major seizures, find its way to the main lab in Silverton.
You've already answered a question I was going to ask tomorrow. Because my question for tomorrow was going to be, once these drugs are at FSL, what happens to them? And you've now just answered it, so thank you. Fewer questions for tomorrow then.
General, do you know if Warrant Officer Sitsedi has confirmed this kind of conversation that he said there was no storage in October?
Commissioners, I'm aware of the fact that the warrant did depose to a statement. I cannot, from the top of my head, remember the detail of the contents.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. General, are you aware of whether a request was made in respect of the 1,000 kilograms, whether a priority request was made to FSL in July 2021 for them to take 1,000? Because isn't that the biggest bust at that point?
It was indeed the biggest seizure. I'm not aware of such priority request, Commissioners.
And in respect of the 700 kilograms for Aeroton, are you aware if there was a special request there? Because that movement was quite quick, from 9 July, the seizure, to 19 July.
I'm not aware if there was any interventions from the colleagues in Gauteng to facilitate the quick submission of those exhibits, Commissioners.
Thank you. Then, General, I think we were at paragraph 65.
I say this especially because even before the exhibits were stored at Port Shepstone, the premises had not been secure. In the information note, General Mosikedi refers to six break-ins at the premises before June 2021, with the most recent before the theft being on 15 January 2021. Most importantly, on 22 January 2020, Lieutenant Colonel S.R. Singh, Acting Section Commander for Counterintelligence, Crime Intelligence, KZN, submitted a report to the Provincial Head of Crime Intelligence, KZN, Provincial Head of DPCI, KZN, Section Head Operations Crime Intelligence KZN, Section Commander UGU Cluster, UGU Cluster Crime Intelligence KZN, and the National Head Security Standard Counterintelligence to address the security breach at the Portception premises following the 20 January 2020 break-in. The report is attached to General Mosikidi's information note.
Chair, at this stage, we seek your indulgence for an early adjournment. We are about to deal with the break-ins and General Mosikidi's report and the security shortcomings. There's some work that the General needs to do following on some of the questioning that occurred today, and he also wants to have a look at some more information in order to give more detail on this aspect, because it seems to have become more important than initially anticipated. He was just supposed to set the scene for the other witnesses to come. So if we could have an early adjournment today to consult with the General and perhaps draft a short supplementary statement where he deals with these additional matters, we'd be indebted to you, Chair.
And we resume at 9:30.
At 9:30, Chair.
Let's adjourn and resume at 9:32.
Thank you.